Hey, this is Daryl as a service for Modern Work Mentor. We're going to take a quick look at the new Q&A meeting option within Microsoft Teams. It has been moved from being an app and now it's a meeting option. I've got a meeting over here organized with Laura and Matt, and I've gone into meeting options and enabled Q&A down here. So with that enabled, then when we join the meeting, we have a new Q&A experience. I've joined the meeting and we've got it running over here with Laura in one screen, and over here, myself. And we've turned on the Q&A panel. So it is feels like an app still, but we're turning it on. It's a panel over on the right-hand side, just like it would be chat. And we've got an option to answer questions here as a participant. Or if we are the organizer, then we have options to ask and answer questions, but also set some of the behaviors and things we'd like to enable for our attendees in our meeting. So we'll go over this in a bit more detail soon. Let's just start off by having Laura ask a question. So it feels like it's powered by Yammer. It looks very similar to the Ask a Question feature. And that question might be, how do we use Microsoft Teams for meetings? I know, very generic question. But we've got some options to bold some things up. So there's some rich format text. I could link to something if I needed to reference something in my question. Maybe it's a document or a site or something like that. And what else have we got? We can start a discussion or ask a question. So with the Q&A, we're actually defaulted and pushed towards asking a question. But yeah, this definitely is a clue that it is powered by Yammer. We can start that discussion. So let's post that question. What does that look like to people in the meeting? All right, so it has been asked over here by Laura. Takes a few seconds before it appears for other people in the meeting. So here I am as an organizer. I can keep that panel open and be looking for those questions that are going to be asked. If I have a team where this might be a webinar or a larger meeting where we've got a number of moderators, then they can keep an eye out for those questions too. So I can react to that. People who are also in the meeting can react to that as well. We've got all the usual reactions available to us from Microsoft Teams. I can comment, which I would call that reply, but in this case, it's commenting on the question. Reply to the question, answer the question. Let's comment on the question. So Microsoft Teams, how to use Microsoft Teams for meetings. You're using it now. Do you need a quick start guide? All right, so again, in these posts, I can link, I can create a list, I can format it a bit, but I have responded to that. When does that response pop up? Well, I'm also going to go over to another person over in the meeting, that's Matt, and I might just quickly ask or make another response to that question. So let's bring Matt over here. Matt can see that question as well. Matt can see the comment. Matt can respond to the question. Matt can also comment on the question. So no, this is interesting. The choices between comment, respond, and reply. But let's do this. I can give you some mentoring to help with meeting organizing. All right, Matt's post. Okay, we'll tuck Matt out of the way. Oh, what's this? So Matt has the option to edit the post. Reply or comment again, and respond to different answers in that Q&A. So what does an edit look like? Yeah, we go back into edit mode. So that's good. Helpful to be able to change up something if you haven't spelt it correctly, or made your question or response clear. Um, Matt could also respond to Daryl's comment as well. Quick start guide. I can send a link to you shortly. I know these are probably not all the types of questions and answers that we might get in a meeting or webinar, but there's a few ways of being able to respond and give help. So yeah, this is good. What else are we seeing here in terms of Matt's response from Laura's point of view? Laura's asked the question. Laura can expand and see all of those comments. So click on 3 new comments. Can see it, right? Can see all those responses to the question. Daryl's response, Matt's response, that's cool. And also Matt's response to Daryl in this conversation thread about the question. So this Matt in reply to Daryl, if I click on in reply, it opens up that reply thread and I can focus on just Daryl's comment and Matt's reply to that thread. So this is a conversation within a conversation, or a conversation about the question. Good to see that feature, and definitely another hint to say that it is powered by Yammer. So maybe Laura likes one of these comments or responses. I can give some mentoring help. Yeah, I think that's the best answer, so I'm going to mark that as best answer. Now, if this was a question that was more about information and getting responses, crowdsourcing answers to that question, then best answer would be great, because it brings that answer to the top, and then it's easier for other people to find that answer. Okay, so anything else? I get prompts here about new posts. I can respond to the question. I could say that it has been a good answer. That's great. Now that's how it would work out of the box, turning Q&A on, allowing questions and answers. If we go over to Daryl's experience here as the organizer, then he can turn on options or off options to control how Q&A works. So maybe I want to close off questions. I could untick ask new questions and save that. And that means that there will be no further questions. It sounds like a legal drama. No further questions, Your Honor. And that means that, yep, the moderator has disabled new posts. But because I've left another option on, respond to conversations, people can continue to respond to the to the existing questions. So maybe Matt wants to respond to that one. I have some good references to on-demand content. Okay, we'll post that. So a good one if you're wanting to close off the existing questions, and maybe that's all that you want to address in a webinar, but you're allowing people to still respond in the conversation thread to give them an answer. Secondly, you could close off responding to questions, so that makes sense too. So that means no further questions or answers. It stands on its own. What else have we got? If we had both of those options turned on again, we can allow people to post anonymously. So this means posts of questions and discussions can be made anonymously. Replies and reactions are not anonymous. So you can ask your question anonymously, but you can't reply anonymously. And that makes sense, I guess, if you're asking your question or you're making your comment. But if you wanted to respond anonymously and offer an opinion about that question, that's not an option. Lastly, moderating attendee conversations. This looks interesting too. Let's save that. That's something that we can only, when we change it, that's it. It's all moderated from here on in. It means that I, as a organizer, can moderate and vet those questions before publishing them to people within the meeting. So let's ask another question here as Laura, and let's say, what are the figures, whoops, this month's sales? Not a great question, but it's still getting the point across. Now, that question, as I experience it as Laura, is not there. It's not visible. Um, it's because it's in moderation. And so I don't get an experience here where I can see my own questions that may not have been published yet. Let me just see if that is the case when I turn Q&A on and off. Do we have additional tabs here to show my questions? Nope. So we only see the questions that have been published. Over here as a moderator, I can see in the in review tab, here's a question that I would like to talk about with my team and say, should we publish this one? Should we dismiss it? What else can I do with it? That's all. So I'm not able to have a private conversation with Laura and say, hey, great question, here's your answer, and not publish it. Rather, I just have the option to publish or dismiss. I don't see any. I can delete it as well. Let's just publish that. So it's quite basic in terms of a Q&A feature. Now that it's been published, it's visible over here for Laura and the rest of the people in the meeting. And Matt might also react to that meeting or to that question. Here it is. But yeah, back over to Daryl and the moderating of questions. Publish, dismiss, delete. That's it. If you do dismiss a question, it looks like you can take a look at the questions that are, have been dismissed. They might be good questions to address later. If it is something that might not be appropriate for the meeting or situation, you can dismiss it and then address that question later. If they have chosen to ask that question, being identified as asking that question. If it's anonymous, maybe it's something you can discuss as a team about responding to that in a more general way. Right. Well, I think that is about all I want to cover off. It's an interesting addition to meetings. I feel that when we had the Q&A feature in the live events, that we were able to have a conversation with someone before publishing the question. That was quite helpful. But I do like how it is managing the way that conversation threads and questions work. So quite powerful that you can have replies within a question, and people can really discuss and tease out the details and help each other out. There's all the typical expectations there of being able to mark things as best answer. Nice to be able to react to things. It'd be interesting to see where these questions land after the meeting. So let's just actually do that. Let's end the meeting and just have a quick search for what where those questions land up. So if we end the meeting, first of all, and I'm ending it for everyone, I would expect to see the questions still available on the meeting details. So as Laura, I should be able to go back to the meeting. Let's go back to our calendar, panel discussion. Is there a tab here where I can catch up with the questions and details? No, meeting, details, meeting notes, what's in chat. Well, Q&A is not chat, so it's not there. It wouldn't be in files. We've just seen the details. So I'm not really seeing anywhere that I can engage in the Q&A after the meeting. Let's have a look here for the meeting here too. So is strange though that I don't actually see the meeting that I just attended. Right, so that meeting was called panel discussion. I didn't accept or RSVP the meeting, but I was still expected to be here in chat. Now, maybe it's not in chat because no chat occurred. Hmm, interesting. If there was chat, then I would see that. So, and I didn't actually open up chat too, so that is a catch there. What about Matt? Did he see any other details? He probably won't see any chat. Right, there wasn't any chat, but they were both invited. Um, okay. Lastly, we're going to go in and see if we can find these questions. There's the panel discussion, but I'll just go back into it and see if that can refresh the organizer's view of the meeting. Chat? No, I wouldn't still expect it to be there in chat. Is it hiding somewhere here on any tab like attendance? Some of these things take a little while to pull together. Okay, attendance. This is helpful. So I can see Laura joined the meeting, all those usual details. Q&A, maybe that's that they participated in Q&A. They asked 2 questions. They gave certain answers. No details though about the questions that were answered and the details. So where is this content? You know, it seems to be one of the more important details that if I needed to capture this later, where is it? You know, maybe I want to show, here's that conversation thread that happened around a question during the meeting. Where can we go and respond to that, or think about what that question was, and potentially address it in a blog post or a news article? Um, Very interesting. Okay, what about we try and find it in Yammer? I know it's a long shot, but let's see. We'll go to Office and then open up Yammer. Yammer. Now, it's not really tied to any community, so I wouldn't expect the Q&A to be available anywhere here. So if as I'm looking here now, I don't expect to see anything. It wouldn't be all company, because can you imagine how busy that would get if conversation threads were there? What about in the inbox? Maybe it could draw my attention to, nope, draw my attention to anything around Q&A. It's really not obvious to me. Maybe you're screaming at your your screen now saying, "Daryl, it's there." It's like one of those pantomimes, right? Where you're trying to find those details and everyone else can see it except yourself. I'm just not seeing it. So in this first release, it kind of feels like, and these are all, you know, other applications, other ways of engaging in meetings, breakout rooms, whiteboards, meeting notes. It's just a mystery to me. How about if we go back in and join the meeting? Now, that would be an unusual way of having to go in and see those details, but let's do that. We don't need to see me to go in and review the Q&A. Can we open up a previous meeting and see Q&A that was asked during the meeting? Good. Okay, this is good. So at least we can go in and see content from there. Do we have an option to export? No. Is there any link to questions and conversations. Close the conversation, pin the conversation. So it looks like if you want to go back in and review the Q&A, you have to enter the meeting again. Not ideal, but at least you can do that. I'd say that's an area for improvement. All right. So that was my first impressions. I know that I went on a bit. It was certainly unscripted. My first reactions, I had a little idea about how this might work, and I could see hints of it being powered by Yammer and some of the goodness that comes out of that. You give Yammer a hard time, but really it's quite a useful service. It's come a long way since some organisations have looked at it, and now that it's been framed up as a employee engagement tool, it really makes sense to be able to have that Q&A feature as part of the community. And what I think I'd like to see too there is being able to tie that Q&A through to a community that might host a webinar, so that you can go somewhere afterwards and engage in the Q&A and keep responding, keep that conversation going after a webinar has been held. I know that may work, well, it will work better for internal conversations and internal webinars, but not so much for having your external parties come along to these. But yeah, it's just another thing to investigate. So, unless I think of something else, that's about it. Those are my first impressions. Let me know what you think about the Q&A feature. If you've got similar desires to see more, and how you might use it within some of your meetings. But certainly, it's going to drive engagement and help you to get some of the actual Q&A section of your meetings under control, instead of having to glance through the chat, scroll back and see if you can find questions and determine. That's always just such a hard role for someone to take. All right. How about that? See you again next time. Bye for now.